Hi everyone, this is Emily Duplessis with Rental Rookie, and on today's video we're going to be taking a look at researching areas for potential rental markets. Okay, one of the things you want to think about is when you're thinking about or looking into buying a rental property, there are a number of things within an area outside of the property itself. You know, when we are looking at a property, we're looking at price, we're looking at square footage, year built, we're looking at the condition of the property. Besides all of that, we also, as investors, have to take into account the actual area in which the property is located. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at 4 kind of overarching factors that you should think about whenever you're researching an area to invest in. Now, one of the things that I also want to mention is that you don't want to maybe just look at these factors if you're investing in a whole new town. Say that you decide that you're going to invest, in a town that's an hour outside of where you live. Absolutely, you don't know much about it because you don't live there. And so you absolutely should be looking for these factors within that area. But on the other hand, even if you have lived in the town where you live right now for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, maybe more, doesn't necessarily mean that you have looked at the certain factors that you need to look at when working or when looking to invest in property. You may not be paying attention to these sorts of things. And so even if you're investing in your own town, these are factors that you should take time to consider before you actually invest. So those 4 things that we're going to look at today are the industry that's in the area, market appreciation, market saturation, and then vacancy timelines and listing timelines. So those are the 4 things we'll take a look at today, and we'll kind of break those down into more detail as we go. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, one of the most important things for you to think about in an area before you invest and to do some research is to find out what type of industry is in that area. What do I mean by industry? What kind of jobs are there that are bringing people to the area or who are keeping people in the area, right? So we want to look at things like employment. Are there schools there that are employing people? Are there hospitals? Those are a big employment, big area for employment are hospitals. Are there any kind of factories? Factories can a lot of times employ thousands of people, so that's going to bring people in and it's going to keep people there if they have that job. If there's any kind of government entity buildings that are there, whether FBI, CIA, so many sorts of government contracting buildings, those sorts of things will bring a lot of people in. If there's IT in the area, that's a big kind of booming thing in various areas right now that's bringing a lot of people into the area. So you want to pay attention to industry, employment. What are the places that are bringing people and keeping people in the area in terms of jobs? People have jobs, people are earning money, people want to rent or buy, which is good for you. Other things that you want to pay attention to are things that people like to frequent. Grocery stores. Most people aren't going to want to have to commute, 25, 30 minutes to get to a grocery store. So paying attention to how close some of these conveniences are can help when you're renting a property, and especially when you're listing a property, because you can talk about how convenient the property is to certain things. So things like grocery stores, restaurants, any kind of entertainment, depending on where you are, there are various types of entertainment that you can pay attention to as well. The other thing is you want to think about, who are my pool of applicants in terms of renters. And so if your primary pool of applicants are families, then you need to also pay attention to the schools. What are the schools in the area? What are their reputations? Do they have a good reputation? Are they blue ribbon schools? Or, are people getting out of the area because they don't want their kids to go to that school? So if your primary pool of applicants are families and they're, leaving town because they don't want their kids to go to that school, that's going to hurt you in the long run in terms of getting and keeping your property vacant. So that's something that you want to pay attention to in terms of whether or not you're renting to families or young professionals or those sorts of things. The other thing that you want to think about are future projects, and you can find a little bit about this online if you do a little bit of research, talking to a local realtor, which I'm going to talk more about as we continue on here. If you're investing in an area, especially if it's an area that you don't know and you don't live in, reaching out to a local realtor can help so much because they can provide you with kind of insider information that, 1, you wouldn't be able to find online, and 2, they're going to save you so much time of your own in terms of researching, because a lot of the stuff that I talk about on here, you can spend some time online researching and finding. But if you make a connection and make a relationship with a local realtor, they know that information already. So they're going to be able to just tell you that right off the cuff instead of you having to invest a ton of time in researching. But one of those things are future projects. The first property that my husband and I invested in, one was outside of the town that we live, about 45 minutes. So it was in a whole new area that we had to learn about, which is, we went through this process that I'm explaining to you today to find out if it was a good area to invest in. And one of the things that our realtor told us was that there were some of the future projects, and one of those was a future FBI building that was going to be built, like a branch building of the FBI, which was going to bring people out there. People are going to be needing places to live. We're right by a hospital as well, but paying attention to those future projects, tells you whether or not what the market's going to be like, and if it's going to bring people in or if it's going to send people out. And that's important when it comes to investing in an area. You want to make sure that you're investing in an area where there's going to be people to rent your property. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is market appreciation. Now, if you have not decided what type of investor you are at this point, you should stop and you should figure that out, because that's really one of the first things that you need to do if you're jumping into this whole field of investing in rental property, which I assume you are because you're here trying to learn. So if you haven't taken a look at our blog post or our article, What Type of Investor Are You? You most definitely should take a look at that when you get done with this video. I will have a link to it on the actual blog page where this video is located, because it's important for you to decide before you actually get into the looking process and then, of course, the buying and making an offer on a property. You need to decide what exactly you're looking for. What type of investor are you going to be? Because there are different types, even within the niche field of rental property, right? So if we invest in real estate, there are so many different things. We're looking at, flipping properties, we're looking at wholesale, we're looking at commercial properties, we're looking at rental properties, and so we're looking solely at buy and hold rental properties right now on this site. That's what we focus on. And so that's one of the things that you need to think about is, okay, within this field of buy and hold and rental properties, what am I looking for? Am I looking to make money, positive cash flow? Am I just buying properties for the appreciation to eventually sell down the road? Those are things that you need to think about before you're even in the process of looking and buying. So like I said, if you haven't taken a look at that, you need to go look at that after you get done with this video. But one of the things that you need to pay attention to is this concept of market appreciation. And again, you can do some research online and you can find all this information, or you can talk to your realtor and they're going to be able to spout this information off to you right off the cuff. Okay? But one of the things that you want to pay attention to are what are the history of the sale prices in the area, okay, for general market conditions. Are properties, and especially properties that you're looking to, if you're saying, I want to invest in condos, or I want to invest in townhouses, or I want to invest in single family homes, you need to take a look at those specific properties and say, okay, over the past 5, 10 years, maybe more, are those prices increasing? Is the market appreciating? Are they depreciating? Are prices going down, or is it stable? That's going to tell you a little bit more about, well, maybe this is an area that I want to invest in, or maybe it's not an area that I want to invest in. And there are pros and cons to either side. If you're investing in an area that the market is appreciating, and so you invest in a property, you're making a little bit of positive cash flow, and you have the potential in 5, 10, 15 years to sell it and make quite a bit of a profit, that's awesome. But also, on the other hand, if you're looking at an area maybe that's depreciating, that might be a little scary for an investor, right? Okay, your mind is probably thinking of the questions that you're wondering, okay, I'm going to buy this property, and in 5, 10, 15 years, it might be worth the same amount of money. Maybe nobody's going to want to buy it, I'm not going to make any money off the sale, and maybe nobody's going to buy it. But on the other hand, I'm making pretty good cash flow on it, and my ROI is pretty high for the year, right? So although you might not make a ton of money in the long run in terms of resale, you're making a pretty good amount of money right now. So you have to think about, what is more important to you, and this goes back to thinking about what type of investor you are. The other thing about depreciating markets, most most of the time, those depreciating markets, maybe there isn't a lot of industry in that area, so maybe there's not a lot of employment. Maybe there's not a lot of those things like grocery stores and restaurants and entertainment that are feeding people or bringing people to that area. So in that case, the jobs that the people are holding there are usually not as stable as people who are working in schools or hospitals. And in that case, if people are having jobs where they're working, in a grocery store, or they're working, part-time jobs, those people are not going to necessarily be able to get a loan to buy a property, right? So in that case, as an investor, your pool of tenants increases so much whenever you're in an area where most of the people are renters, right? So even if there are a lot of properties that are on the market, most of the people that live in that area have to rent anyways. And so people always need a place to live. And so there really are, a lot of times when people say, ooh, depreciating market, yikes, I'm going to run away, there are some pros to investing in that sort of area. And again, it just goes back to what type of investor you are. What is your end game? What is your goal? That's going to tell you how important market appreciation is for you in terms of investing. All right, market saturation. Saturation, right? This concept of there's an overabundance of something. Why is this important to look at whenever you're investing in a rental property? Before you invest, right, if you're looking into a new area, one of the things that you're going to want to pay attention to is what type of properties are on the market right now for rent. So your realtor maybe can pull together an entire list of the properties that are for rent and give that to you. You can do a little research online, go into, places like Trulia or Realtor.com or Craigslist, any of those places where people are listing their properties, their rental properties. You can go there and kind of compile a list of, okay, what's on the market right now this month and what are the prices. One of the things that you should pay attention to, and by no means am I telling you that this factor dictates whether or not you buy the property that you want, but at least you're aware of this concept of market saturation. So what you want to look at, let's say that you compile a list, you've got 20 properties that are in this area that are for rent. 12 of those properties for this month are condos. Let's say 5 are townhouses, and maybe 3 are single-family homes. If you look at that, what type of property is saturating the rental market right there? I'm hoping that you're answering the condos, right? Because there are 12 out of 20. In that case, maybe you might not want to invest in a condo because you're going to have so much competition. You may want to invest in either the townhouse or maybe the single-family home because the numbers and the people that you're competing against is much lower. Okay, so paying attention to that can help you decide what type of property that you want to invest in. I mean, because let's be real. The last thing that you want to do is buy a property and then you have to hold it for 6 months to get it rented. That's money that's coming out of your pocket, not money that's coming into your pocket, which is the whole point of investing in real estate, right? We want money coming in, especially rental properties. We want that passive income. And so if you're having to hold a property because you're competing with 12 other like properties that are similar to yours, you might not want to invest in that. And again, it shouldn't 100% dictate it, but it's important for you to pay attention to that. If you do decide that, but I really like this condo, the numbers really work for me, I'm still going to invest in this condo in our scenario here, that's fine. The thing that you need to pay attention to is what is going to set my condo apart. So then you need to start paying attention to not just the type of property, okay, what do these properties look like? You need to go through and take a look at pictures. Are these properties updated? Do they have modern kitchens? Do they have, modern fixtures? Those sorts of things. Hardwood floors, maybe nicer countertops. Those sorts of things are going to set cosmetically because whenever renters come in, they're looking at the cosmetics of a property. That is going to set yours apart. So if you decide to invest in something that's saturating the market, you need to take the time to figure out what is going to make my property unique. That's extremely important. The last thing that we're going to take a look at are vacancy and listing timelines, and these things go hand in hand with one another. This also, you can do a little bit of research online, or again, reach out to whoever your realtor is that you have a relationship with and just ask them because they're going to be able to tell you this. You need to find out how long properties are vacant or how long the listings are going for. So in a specific area, if rentals are on average listed for 60 days before they get a tenant in there, you need to make sure that you're accounting for that when you're running the numbers. You know, that the last thing that you want, and I can tell you firsthand, there are enough surprises that come up whenever you own rental properties. The last thing that you want is this to happen, you know, where you have to hold the property and pay money out of your pocket because you didn't take the time to look at or find out what the average timeline is for properties to get rented. You know, like I said, you're going to have enough phone calls and enough issues that are going to come up. If you can make this not a surprise, then you need to make sure that you're doing that. Do your due diligence ahead of time so that when you buy this property and you're going, oh my gosh, it's taken 2 months to get a person in there. I got to pay this mortgage for 2 months. You should have already accounted for that when you ran the numbers in the beginning. If you haven't downloaded our property analysis spreadsheet, I will put a link to that, and actually at the end of the video here that you'll see the link as well, but I'll put a link that you can click on the blog post. But you can download our property analyzer. It's free, and in that you will see that there's a specific box that asks you to put in holding costs. You know, so that would be, okay, the average timeline is 60 days for this property to get rented. That's going to be 2 months of expenses that I'm asking you in this analysis to account for ahead of time so that you know, all right, my total cash that I'm going to be investing in this property is including that average of 2 months expenses. Great. If you get it rented in 30 days, awesome. That's, you know, obviously your numbers aren't 100% accurate, but that's okay because you got it rented faster, and so you have that extra cash. But you always should account for holding costs ahead of time, and that's going to be dictated by what are the vacancy and listing timelines for that area. And again, that property analyzer is free, and I'll have a link to that in the blog that you can go to and download so that you can account for those sorts of things ahead of time. So why does all of this matter, right? So we've talked about industry, we've talked about market appreciation, we've talked about market saturation, and lastly, the timelines for vacancies. Why does all of this matter? Why should you take the time ahead of time to look at all of this stuff? Okay, this is going to tell you whether or not an area is a good area to invest in. Like I've said on my blog and in articles and maybe other videos, as investors, it is not about emotion. We have to cut the emotion out. It is purely about the numbers. What works? What, you know, are those numbers going to work and yield what I want in terms of the type of investor that I am? And so whenever we're thinking about that and saying, okay, it's all about the numbers, we need to take into consideration all of these different aspects because that's going to help us decide, you know, this is an area where, yes, the numbers are going to work for me and the area is going to work for me for my specific goals. And so it's so important that you take the time. I mean, you cannot do enough due diligence whenever you are investing in real estate to find out as much as you can about an area because that's only going to make the process of actually owning the property and managing the property, if you choose to do so, that much easier if you do the hard work up front. So again, short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, long-term peace of mind. And so all of these things tell you and help you figure out if an area is worth investing. And I also will have a link to in our on the blog when you get done with the video, a link to a PDF that we have, and it basically is it's a list of questions and tips, some from this video and some more that I didn't talk about in this video, to help you whenever you're analyzing a property. So it's going to give you a lot of demographical information that you should take a look at. So the 4 that we've talked about in the video are going to be included, but there's a lot more that's going to be on there that's going to provide you with more insight into, you know, what you need to look for whenever you are investing in an area. So I will have a link to that as well in the blog post so that you can get to that and download that. That is free as well. Overall, here is the link to our free property analyzer. So I'll have, you know, that link in the blog post as well. You'll be able to click on that and download. All of these things are for free. They're for you to help you in this process. I know, again, as a rookie investor, I've been there just a couple years ago. As much stuff as you can get for free helps, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you, and I'm here to help you through this process because I was there, I'm still learning, there's so much in the field, and the best thing is to learn from like-minded individuals. So I hope this was helpful in terms of thinking about, you know, where you want to invest in and what you need to look for in an area before you invest. And so I hope that you enjoyed the video. Happy investing!